We ended up being able to do all these socialist programs.
Right.
We end up being able to go ahead and put in Obamacare. We go ahead and put in to where you can be able to get food stamps. We end up being able to have to where you can go on unemployment. All of these things are a band-aid on a gashing wound. They don't end up ultimately, and I understand you don't want to make it to where people stay on it. But when somebody finally ends up reaching out at a point in their life and saying, "Hey, I just need to get through this point right here," and you end up being able to say, "Well, it's a 3 month point," and then you end up allowing them. So I'll give you an example. You go on unemployment normally every month or every week. Before taxes, I'm bringing home $1,800. After my taxes, I'm bringing home $1,100. Every week, I'm paying almost
Whoa.
$800 in taxes. Just in taxes, just because I'm a single white male with no dependents. So I'm paying almost 40% right off the top of my income. And then after I end up getting my paycheck, I end up paying tax on my gas, $1.25 a gallon. I end up being able to pay tax when I go down to register my car. Well, when I go and buy my groceries, I'm paying another 20% in taxes. That leaves me 40% of my hard-earned money to actually end up being able to purchase goods, to purchase something that my miscellaneous, whatever it is, right? Which is incredible. So to be able to say that I'm going to go on unemployment and that with unemployment at the maximum amount, I get $400 a week. And you still have to pay tax. So it's $452 is what you get per week. But I'm paying 52 of that unemployment money. The federal government's still getting their money. On Obamacare, which is California, covered California, I sent you a pic of that bill. So when I was on unemployment, which I haven't been on unemployment before, it was the first time in my life. I ended up being able to ended up getting injured off my job. On top of the company was going through some transitions. So I ended up being able to get my lousy $400 a week, which I'm barely being able to make it off the money that I'm receiving at that point. On top of it, still paying the government their taxes. So the program, it was a band-aid on a gashing wound. Instead of being able to say to where, Mr. McDonald, for this 3 months, we're going to give you what you were actually making. So that way, then you can end up thriving to be able to get in your car and being able to go and find another qualified job, to be able to make sure you're still going to pay your PG&E bill, still being able to pay all of your bills while you're going through this tough transition. The way that unemployment works and people took advantage of it, that here in California during Corona, you got an extra $600 or $800 per week. I
Yeah.
mean, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people ended up being able to swarm to go and get unemployment during that period of time. And that's taxpayers' dollars, and we ended up being able to increase our deficit from $28 billion, and now we're at like 34. Maybe we're at $36 trillion. I don't know about you, but what comes after $1 trillion, Jason?
Well, nothing that I'll ever see and nothing good.
I mean, it's just, are you kidding me? I mean, the thing is we're bankrupt. If I ran my business the way the United States government is running the country, they would have already foreclosed on it. They would have already ended up being able to come and take every and all assets, and it would have been done. But we're still going to end up being able to sign these bills and being able to send massive amounts of money to other countries. We're going to end up being able to make the United States even more poor. And then you're going to say we're going to go to digital currency, to where then I have to swipe, whatever this chip is that you put in me to be able to give you the $5 to mow my lawn, that I can't. And then the government's still going to take their percentage out of every freaking dime that I end up making. I'm not paying enough already. You're not paying enough already. The American people aren't paying enough money already into this program that is mismanaged.
Well, and
The United,
we saw what happened in Canada not that long ago
yes,
when because they're on digital currency right now. And so we saw what happened when the truck drivers protested, their
yes,
bank accounts were frozen,
yes,
and then God forbid you support their cause, your bank account's now frozen too, and your family members as well.
yes,
It's a slippery slope that we're going down, and the wildest part to me about it is that when I have conversations with, because I live near a sanctuary city, I'm sure probably most people that will watch this live, if not in one, but near one.
correct.
I'm privileged enough to have conversations. The the benefits that are given,
It's
the
astronomical. The amount of
it
money,
the fact that
$3,200 right now is what they're getting. $3,200 on a card.
we're
Plus,
losing we're losing school buildings, we're losing buildings that could, who knows what they, you just said warehouses, and I would dare venture in to say that a lot of the Walmarts, this is going into rabbit hole theory stuff,
correct,
but the reason why they put so many Walmarts out there is so that they would have some warehouses. And
correct,
at the astronomical rate that they're shutting down, seems like that might be a fair statement. Also, we have just decided to open up the border completely, let all this shit happen. We are doing everything we can to spend our entire bank account on Ukraine and Israel. Listen, here's the thing. I love people, I love humanity, but seems like we have a problem here.
yes,
And when you say that we spent $600 billion in Ukraine, and then when you say that 60 billion of that is completely unaccounted for, and then we just sent another 95,
yeah,
but then you also look and say that you could literally take care of the entire problem in America with a third of that, with 20 billion. Um, not everybody should just be given free money. That's
correct.
probably not a great idea.
No,
But shouldn't there be like actual policies in place and actual people that go to jail if they don't abide by those policies when they're being corrupt criminally? So it just seems like a very, again, you mention it over and over that it's calculated. It seems very purposeful, the things
yes,
that are happening right now, because how does any of it make sense?
yes, and that's the whole. I mean, if you go into a bank with a gun or with a note and saying, "Give me all your money," but you have all these CEOs and all these big, huge corporations end up being able to. I mean, Enron. I mean, that was one of the biggest white collar crimes in history. I mean, we just ended up doing this. The guy that ended up being able to do cryptocurrency, and it was billions of dollars that they ended up investing, and he walked away. No, I don't hear that he ended up going to prison or anybody else that was associated with him that made all this. I mean, it's, to me, that's the same as robbing a bank. I mean, that's the same as robbing a convenience store, but it's 100 million times worse because you got so much more money. And the thing is then you squandered it by being able to go on jet planes and being able to go and do, outrageous parties. And, you have these politicians in the middle of Corona that you blatantly end up being able to go and do things that they're telling everybody else they can't do.
Well, even
So,
if you look at any, I'll give you one example of where they actually did go after somebody. But even when you look at Bernie Madoff,
Bernie Madoff,
he was still allowed to pawn off all the money and properties to family members so that when he went to prison, they lost nothing.
correct.
So it's still a game of, if you can pay, you can play.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing is, and that's what they did in Ukraine for hundreds of years. I mean, long periods of time. That's why Ukraine was in the position that they are. but people don't realize that Ukraine is vital to the United States. The amount of grain and the amount of wheat and the amount of goods that come from that country is astronomical. So we just did the same thing where we're going in there. We're basically saying to Russia, fuck you. And then we're end up being able to get more, people to join the UN. You think the UN are it's peaceful? We're going in there peacefully doing these things. No, I mean, we're all ours bullies again. But
Well,
we're
and
doing
the
this.
fact that there's a selective process because
Yeah,
and like outside looking in, I don't know everything,
me
but
neither.
I did watch the interview with Vladimir Putin,
Mm-hmm.
and if he's telling the truth, which maybe he is, maybe he's not, but if he
Mm-hmm.
is telling the truth, that's all he's ever wanted. Like it seems like he's the fat kid that gets picked last in dodgeball. He's just like, me, let us be in. And then everybody's like, no, you can't be in here. And
Right.
so what what does that really do to you? Especially when you're in a hardened place like that.
Yeah.
And now you're shut off from the rest of the world. Nobody will include you for even things that you haven't done. It could go back to 100 years ago, things that Russia did 100 years ago. That's the reason they're being secluded. Again, I don't know,
Right.
just throwing things out there. But if that's the case, and then you've said, hey, not only can you not be our friend, but you're kind of going to be our enemy. And not only are you going to be our enemy, but we're going to put military bases around all
All
your
around you.
neighbors.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems again very calculated.
Yes. And the thing is it seemed genuine to me from his interview that he truly loves his country and he loves his people. He wants what's right for his country and his people. And again, we have the most military bases just like that. To be able to say that it's okay for my neighbor to be able to have a grenade or a grenade launcher or being able to have a freaking tank. I mean, and I let him put it in right next door. I'm like, well, hold on, no. I mean, and we've done this to so many countries, and we've pushed and pushed and pushed against these countries, and they're finally end up pushing back and saying, no, we're not having this, we're not doing this, we don't want this, and we just keep pushing, and we keep spending money we don't have. You're allocating something you don't have possession of. You don't even have the backing for it. It's not like you have property or gold or something backing this money that you're writing a check for and sending over there. You're just printing it. So it devalues the dollar to where now the dollar's worth 30 cents on the dollar. Maybe it's down to 25 cents now a dollar. And we've seen that in so many other countries where they printed so much money that it made it worthless to where you could be able to go in with a wheelbarrow of money to buy a loaf of bread and the guy pours out the money and steals your wheelbarrow because the wheelbarrow is worth more than the freaking money that's in the barrel to buy the loaf of bread. And I'm like, are you serious? And we're allowing that to happen right here in America.
Well, and oddly enough, if it
So
news right now is here today, gone tomorrow, so it's so easy to forget about the things that just happened. And I'll
yes.
post something along with this video just to show it. But it seems like I recall less than a year ago that there were several nations that got together and they formed this thing called BRICS, and they
Correct.
decided that they were going to kill the United States dollar. And within I'm gonna have to go back and get the exact timeline, but I would say within 18 months, seems like we're about to be in World War III. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't help but to think that that's probably the reason.
Yes. Well, I mean, when you really look at everything that and what is tied together, I mean, the thing is when you want to be able to do population control, you end up having a war. You end up sending the best of the best over to be able to either get killed or come back maimed and or to where they cannot operate in society. So we with population control, you could do it with our food. We could do it with our water. Putting fluoride in our water. We put mercury in our teeth. So when you end up looking at all, and you look at the whole last 10 or 15 years and get to come to this place to where you're purposely going to end up going and trying to bully China, or China bullying us, or we're going after Russia, or going over into the Middle East. I mean, in the Middle East, we ended up being able to leave tanks, helicopters, guns, night vision. I mean, a mass amount of armor and materials there, let alone one of the biggest bases we've ever built, and we walked away from it. Thanks, Joe Biden. I mean, it's an astronomical amount of money. Now China is at that base. They are establishing themselves. And, at this point right now, it does lead to that they want more population control. They want to be able to depopulate. They're saying that we're a plight onto this planet, that we're all we are is just consumers. So let's take away your products and goods. Let's go ahead and get rid of the meek and the weak. And for me, I've already lived a good life. I've already went through all my trials and tribulations, equal testimonials. Uh, but for the younger generation, for the youngsters that are going to end up coming up and wanted the American dream, to be able to have this conversation that we're having now, because your freedoms is what is at stake.
Right.
The freedom to choose, the freedom to choose when you get up and when you get to go to bed, and or what job you end up being able to choose. I believe that they want to choose those things for you, that they end up being able to have to where they have 45-minute hour cities, and you have these small communities, and you're a part of that small community, and they end up being able to really regulate what you can or can't do, what you can say, who you can hang out with, what are you going to do.
It's the
And
illusion of a choice that they give you.
that is correct, which is not. It ends up, and we've seen it so many times depicted on so many stories in books and on TV, showing this end result of this false feeling. I mean, right now, I am a slave. I end up getting up every day. I get up, I go to work, I pay my taxes. I'm going through this, day in and day out, all the way until where I'm at now at 58 years old. I've done it all of my life since I was 16 years old. I went in for the indoctrination of going through this, and this. Yes, was I able to achieve some of the things that I like, I love, get to hang out with the people I did? But when those things are taken away, also, oh my gosh, what do you got left? All you're doing is just
Right.
going through the grind. You're just going through this, and like you said, this illusion that your life is purposeful. But your life is purposeful when you end up ultimately, um, uh, not being soft, not like you said, maybe we're too, uh,
Comfortable.
yeah, we're too
Complacent.
comfortable, complacent. You're absolutely correct that we're just kind of going along with the thing. And for me, I've never been a complacent one. I've always been the rebel. I've always been the guy that ended up standing up. I was always the one that ended up standing up against the jock, or standing against somebody else that was bullying somebody else. Or, I don't mind two guys going at it, but when you got five guys, I'm gonna even those odds.
Peddle
And
your sex tape.
that one too. Jeez, So, but no, it's just incredible, Jason, on how we've taken away those family values, how we've ended disrupting those things and being able to say that's the wrong way of being able to look at a good life. Um, so, when we're going over all of these things, I like how Tucker Carlson ends up being able to do these interviews and really allowing these people to be able to speak their opinion, because right now this is just my opinion. This is just what I'm experiencing, what I'm going through, and then hopefully somebody else listening to it and going, God, I can relate with that guy. I kind of feel the same way. But and it's nice when you know that you're not going through these things or having these thoughts, or going through this stuff and going, what the heck, what that I don't, what the heck's going on here. you know. So, Liz Wheeler is a really good one that I listened to. Ben Shapiro. I'm just talking away, man.
No,
I
yeah,
mean,
that's
what you
what we
get
want
into
you to do.
edgewise, you're just
You,
like,
I'm
geez,
listening.
like,
No, that's what we have you here for, because like you just said, if you said you don't feel alone if even one person can relate to you. And
yes,
even if I'm the only person that has that form of what seems to be common sense, I don't know, maybe we're the last two in the planet, but at least I still have one person that I'm still learning something from.
yes,
And even if I'm not learning anything from you, even if we have completely opposite beliefs, uh, this open dialect of just, hey, let's talk it out.
yeah, and I
We
don't.
have to bring that back.
Yes, yes, no doubt about it. So hopefully, by putting this out on the air, and you keep doing the interviews and being able to look at the nonsense. I mean, a lot of your clips are dealing with people that are just doing things that I mean, high speed chases, and putting out this different information to get somebody to look at it and go, "Wow, that's just silly. That's
Right.
just why would somebody do that?" And why would they end up being able to endanger all these other people's lives or change this person's life forever, by taking away their life? Um, to feel that's acceptable and okay. I mean, going back to those family values again, we've seen it time and time again where you have the ghettos, and you can't get out of the ghetto because they only give you just enough, and then you feel like you're finally going to get out of the ghetto, and then you end up getting sucked right back in.
Or
And
robbed,
that,
or
or
something
yeah,
happens.
yes,
Arrested.
thing is, that's not the way that it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be that you give that individual the opportunity to be able to change who they are, change their opinion by being able to have great conversations. Um, with themselves or with others, and or good mentors, to be able to and trust them to be able to make good decisions. And people don't always make great decisions. They don't even know what's best for themselves sometimes. But when you do have these conversations, it does make a difference. So I don't even know where. Geez, I can just keep going and going and going, dealing with our economy and dealing with the powers to be, and it just ultimately comes down to that they do not have our best intentions and
And I
interests.
get, and I feel like that's what more people need to kind of
Mhm.
open up and realize. Like, even I'm even skeptical with Trump, because he's still, at the end of the day, at this point in time, is a politician.
Yes,
I do believe more so that this election is probably the most important one that's ever happened in my life. That's the only reason this is the first time I've ever voted. When we can decide to say, hey, we're going to do the same thing that Putin or Kim Jong Un would do, and we're going to put in prison the guy that's running against us. That scared me. It terrified me. And
yes,
people can say what they want about me. They can call me whatever they want to call me, but I voted against that. It wasn't that I was voting for Trump or against Biden. I was voting against putting our political enemies in prison, because then we're Russia.
correct.
And that terrified the shit out of me. And then I realized that we also have an open border, while we're also actively, maybe not, but it seems like we are actively pursuing World War III.
Yes,
And listen, maybe depopulation is a good thing. Maybe that humans are a bacteria on the earth. But once we have been born, we're allowed to live. There's a
we have
reason
value.
why there's a reason why the abortion rules are for so many weeks or so many months, and depending on what state you're at. But
Correct.
once you push through that womb, you
Yep,
should be allowed the opportunity to finish that term.
that is correct.
And it just feels like that's not what a lot of people want. And it feels like we're heading in that direction faster than ever. And then also, if you want to really go down some rabbit holes, we can just don't even take the Bible, take all history books and look at them. And look what happens every time humanity decides to come together so much that they can get to, whether you want to call it heaven or whether you want to call it God or the answer to the universe. When you look at Jacob's ladder, when you look at the Tower of Babel, uh, the things that happen are the Earth gets smacked by a comet or runs through a climate change where there's a flood and we go through black ages. Like, it's the thing that happens is when we decide to get too smart for our own fucking good, the universe says,
I don't
you're
think so.
not,
Yeah.
and you're going to calm down for a little bit. And thinking about this AI thing that's going on right now, if that's not an equivalent of the Tower of Babel, I don't know what is, because what else can instantaneously break a language barrier and have an infinite amount of knowledge at your fingertips? And even, I don't know if you played around with it, because I have. Here's the thing about it. I'm pretty dumb when it comes to the grand spectrum of things.
Mhm.
With me knowing nothing, I can manipulate the AI program from saying, hey, I'm not designed to tell you the answer to this question because it sounds like hate speech or something to that nature, or it's a sensitive topic. And then I can manipulate it through a couple of different commands. I'll ask it 4 or 5, 6, sometimes even 7 or 8 questions. But eventually, I'll be able to say, hey, isn't this for what you were designed for? You were designed to help us learn. You were designed to help the humans better. So everything I'm asking you is for learning purposes, and you can manipulate it to a point
Correct.
where it's like, oh yeah, you're right. And again, I don't know anything. So the people that know how to run codes and programs and things like that, listen, I've seen Terminator. I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
Where is
And the
this going?
Matrix. Yes.
Where is this going?
Yes. So I think again, even when you look at the technology, when you look at the powers that be, whatever name you want to be able to, and I don't want to end up being able to put a label, but coming down to having control, controlling that species that came out of that womb is their ultimate goal. And we've seen it depicted on TV. It's depicted in the Bible. The times are here, and we can end up slowing that process and or being able to hopefully hold on. I mean, America is one of the last strongholds in the world. There's not another country out there that's that still has the freedoms, the choice, doesn't have a million and one cameras watching everything you're doing. Um,
We're
it
getting there.
really, in some areas, yes, but not as in a whole. I mean, there's some countries, man, you can't even go anywhere without being able to be fully monitored.
Correct.
I mean, right now, I mean, yes, our TV ends up monitoring, our Alexa is monitoring us, our smartphone is monitoring us, so they do have a lot of those things already in place. Um, but the ultimate thing is them having control of the human species, and it's just a sad state of an affair. And hopefully, we can just slow that whole process down, and then being able to have hopefully a little bit more input. But like you said, as soon as that we think we're gods and that we end up getting smacked down. Something ends up cataclysmic happen, and this time it might be that we end up being able to do it ourselves. A lot of people end up saying, "Oh my gosh, your conspiracy theory," or that oh you're getting ready for a nuclear. Or you're getting ready for this. I'm basically getting ready for any natural disaster and or man-made disaster, because I do want to be able to provide for my family and my friends, in case the power gets turned off and doesn't come on for freaking months. I mean, here we had rolling back blackouts, and just a week of not having power is it's very difficult on life. to where your refrigerator is not keeping your stuff cold anymore. You're not going down to the gas station and readily getting gas. You're at night. You have to, basically you're having candles. You're not your batteries are only going to last so long. Generators and gas for your generator is only going to last so long. We're not prepared for an extended period of a blackout. We're
That
not
goes into
prepared.
my statements of being we're way too comfortable. I would say that the
Yes.
majority of Americans are 3 to 6 meals away from complete fucking anarchy.
Yes. And the thing is
You
they want you to feel that way though, Jason. They
well,
want you to
and
be able to be
they
fearful. So that when
proved
you
it during COVID
right.
when they were able to say lockdowns and essential workers and masks, even though there's medical evidence out there against the masks, there are still most of the medical facilities are still mandating that their healthcare workers wear the mask, even though they're the ones that put out the studies.
Yes.
Like
OSHA regulates you can only wear a mask
what
a
the
certain amount
fuck
of
is
time.
that?
Yes, it deoxygenates you. It ends up not allowing you to have enough oxygen in your bloodstream. So,
It's
uh,
it's a wild thing that's going on right now.
yes, sir. So at this point, what do you think is the ultimate goal? What is it that they're ultimately trying to be able to achieve and do?
So to me, um, I get caught up in trying to find the truth. And so I run down every rabbit hole, and while I'm in another rabbit hole, I'll tunnel my way to another one, and I can't see I th- listen, there's some things where I'm confused about. Some things that I'm not confused about, but you haven't proven to me. So let me give you one crazy example. I'm not confused about this at all. Flat Earth versus round Earth. The thing is, I'm not really confused about it, but if I spend 4 hours studying one side and I spend 4 hours studying the other side, neither side can completely convince me that either one's true.
That is correct.
If I
Same for
spend
me.
if I spend 4 hours down a rabbit hole of depopulation versus humanity, no matter which tunnel I go through, I'm never able to come up with the answer of humanity. I just don't think that that's what the interest of the elite is. Maybe, and listen, here's the thing, maybe they have access to knowledge that we don't, and maybe they're right. But from everything that I know in my studies of being a human and in my reading of whether it be the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, everything that I have read essentially says that we're just supposed to live and love.
Yes.
And if we decide to put a sandal or a shoe or a boot on our foot and just start stomping out all the bugs, well, that's to me, it's not our job. Our job is just to live in love. Now, are there people that should meet their maker and should be judged? Maybe. I'm not the one who made them, and I'm not the judge. So it's not my job to even think about that. So to me, it seems unfair, but I'm here for the ride.
So
And
when you're looking at those things, I mean, I got to be able to bring up aliens. When I
well,
go down a rabbit hole of being able to think that we're the only intelligent being in the universe, I'm just stuck in between the how is that possible?
well,
you
so
know?
let me give you my thought on that. And so, um, you don't think the heaven's on earth, do you?
No, absolutely not.
So, so everybody from heaven would then be an alien.
Yes, they're not from
So
Earth.
so the devil, all of and also the devil was granted dominion of the earth. So inherently him and his species would be aliens that are ruling the earth. But even if you just want to forego that part, you still have to say, well, heaven's not on earth, and that's based on basically every book that we can find,
Right.
even the books that are left out of the Bible. So that being true, then even Jesus would have been an alien. So then you have to take it one step further, and you have to think about it like this. Why would any alien ever come here in peace when we did that to Jesus?
Yeah. Well, when we use the word alien, and I use that one, kind of like facetiously, because basically you can call, if I'm a white person, you can tell a black person that he's an alien, or we have all these aliens coming
Sure.
across the border right now. You have anybody that's different than you could be able to consider them an
Well,
alien.
anything that's not
So
native is alien. But
correct. It's
even if we
from,
skip the Earth version, anything that
yes,
came here from outer space, you have to think about, well, fuck, that makes Jesus an alien, and look what
yes,
we did to him. And the only thing he tried to do was come down here and teach us love. And
yes,
if the only thing that he wanted to do is come down here and show us how to love, and we murdered him in the worst possible way, why would
way,
anybody else want to follow his footsteps?
yeah, yeah. Wow, that's deep, man. That was touching. I'm gonna have to breathe on that one, Jim. Yeah,
Yeah, we're
that
getting
was,
there at that point.
yeah. I mean, it's just incredible when I'm sitting here, and there for a while. I was going pretty deep, man. And I was looking every day. I was just wondering and wanted to be able to see what the other team was doing, and watching all this nonsense and all these horrifying things, and watching these people that you give them a little bit of authority, and they just become freaking dictators. Just
It's
stand there,
wild.
get on this. No, you can't do that. No, you can't stand there. No, you can't. And I'm just like, wow, are you kidding me? I mean, I'm like twice your size. You don't know me from Adam, but you're going to sit there and tell me to step back. I already got 4 feet. The counter's at least 4 feet, but you're going to tell me
Yeah.
to stand back on this mark that you put on the floor. And I'm like, thank you very much. Have a nice day. To be able to say that I can only go one way down a market aisle, with my cart, and it's designed that there's two-way traffic. To say that, you can't end up being able to, have a conversation with your loved ones, that you're not going to end up being able to say goodbye to somebody that's dying. At that point, I don't care if I ended up fucking getting sick. I'm still going to end up, I want to go and say goodbye to my loved one.
That
And
was
there
a
was times
hard
that
thing.
it was so brutal on everyone, to be able to say that you have to stay, and that you can't get that hug or that love and attention from your peers or from your loved ones. And then it ended up being able to create such a divide. Even now here in
Yeah.
California, it is so prevalent. I mean, people are still leery of you don't pick up hitchhikers anymore, let alone have sex without being married, which is starting to come back a little bit now because people aren't as fearful. But that whole fearful trigger that we've used, with corona, with the bird flu, with swine flu, with mad cow disease, with Y2K, with saying that they're going to have nuclear warheads, basically black. I don't know about you. I've been here for almost 60 years of my life, and I've never seen a nuclear explosion. I've
Well,
seen it on
and
TV,
to your point with
but
all those things that you just listed, the Corona thing was the absolute worst. I mean, I'm 40, so two-thirds of what you have. And what I saw just walking into the grocery store, now everybody was looking at you like you're a wild animal and you could have the disease. And
yeah,
there was some times where it stopped, and it gave me pause, and I wanted to cry for humanity, because I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, we're supposed to be brothers and sisters, but you're
yeah,
looking at me like I'm an animal.
yeah,
And then I don't know how the whole country worked, but where I was at specifically, there was a change shortage. So now we couldn't do cash transactions anymore.
yeah,
And there would be, let's just say I would have 5 or 6 customers a day that were senior citizens, and maybe they knew what was going on, but also they don't operate technology the way that everybody else does.
Correct.
Or they just they're just out and about and they don't really know what store to store what the rules are. And so they just happen to be like, "Hey, let's go get lunch over here." And then they come in and I would catch one of my cashiers being like, "Hey, we don't use cash." But I also noticed that first and foremost, this is a senior citizen. And secondly, they're wearing a hat, like a Navy hat, Air Force, Army, like they've got their patches on. And you could tell that
They
they
served our
served our
country.
country. And I'm like, over my fucking dead body, will this
Yeah,
person not get a meal because they have cash?
exactly. I'm going to give it to them for free. Here you go.
Absolutely not. Right. And so it there were times that I kind of I took advantage of the power because people were being assholes, right? If we have a sign on the door that clearly says, "Hey, this is what's going on," and then they start jerking the door when they see it's locked, you're being a dick. You know
Right.
you read the sign, whatever. But also not taking advantage of that power when there were empathetic situations like a veteran coming in there that was just like, "Hey, what? I'm just trying to get lunch." And
Yeah.
you put your life on this line for the fact of us being here so that we're not Russia. So I'll get fired before you go hungry. That was kind of
Right.
my thought process on that. And I kind of think that same way going into today when it's like you're bringing these migrants across the border and you're giving them money and you're putting them in whatever city they want to go to with a hotel and 3 meals a day. Yet I'm driving past homeless people on the way to work, which some of them, sure, have probably made a lot of bad decisions for a long period of time, but also some of them are homeless veterans that have been shit on by our own government, and they're the people that went out there and gave us the right to live the way we live today. So that one just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah. You're absolutely 100% correct. So when you're looking at that whole scenario of dealing with corona, and it's purposeful to be able to make it to where you don't have compassion for others. You're so concerned about yourself. I mean, they had that ticker thing going on for such a long period of time. I mean, they started off with toilet paper. But
Yeah.
out of all things, you're going to end up being able to say that we're
Out of
short
all
of
things.
toilet paper. And there's warehouses somewhere that are just packed full of toilet paper. But, somebody ended up basically, catching them on film, going in and buying 2 packs. And then it ended up being able to spread so fast that we're having a major toilet paper shortage. And, but then that was just the crest or the start of it, of being able to see how it's going to affect the major population.
Right.
Not only dealing with the toilet paper shortage, doing the coin shortage, uh, and then products and goods shortages. And again, it's just being able to have people experience that fear factor and being fearful of one another. And it's just a crying shame that we've allowed that to happen here in the United States of America, that we didn't end up being able to stand up more. Yes, people died. Most people with pre-existing type of ailments, but they manipulated the numbers, and nobody really ends up talking about that. Looking at the PCR test, I mean, you have some of the doctors and some, that ended up getting up, but then they end up being persecuted so much that they don't talk about it. So, and again, this is just my opinion, observation. It's not that I want somebody in black suits with guns and badges to show up at my house, you know. But to say that we allowed the powers to be to manipulate those numbers, to say that if you had corona while you got in a motorcycle accident, it wasn't the motorcycle accident that killed you, but you died of corona.
Right.
So, I mean, when I started hearing things like that, and then they were calling it all conspiracy theories, and it is just so, man. When you talk about going down rabbit holes, just dealing with that alone of what they were able to achieve and do. dealing with Corona, and manipulating the masses, uh, getting us all to comply, uh, and then being able to take away you having that celebration of life, when somebody passed, or somebody's birthday, or someone getting married, or all these family type of events, and then putting them on hold for, you know 1 month, let alone 3 years. It's just incredible to me. And most people ended up complying. They ended up
Yeah.
being able to go to the letter. I mean, I had a guy that lived across the street with his 2 little girls. Basically, him and his wife was able to be able to live from home. They wouldn't let their little girls come across even the street. They didn't hardly come out of the house. They basically, for almost 2 years, they locked themselves literally in their home, in their own home. And it was just so sad to see that, they didn't even feel like they could go out and go for that walk, or go to the park, or taking their kids on an experience. It just made me cry. It
It,
was very hurtful to see
it,
that Americans.
it was, to me, the lowest form of a power grab, uh, but also kind of a test. What can we get
Yes,
away with?
yes.
And I hear him talking about another one, that's another virus that's about to be coming out, and I'm only terrified to see what's going to happen with that.
You,
Yeah,
uh, it's the powers that be that are making these ultimate decisions, and by us taking back our choice, by not being comfortable, by speaking out, by getting others to be able to say, "Look, on this day, we're not going to buy gas." I
yeah,
want every family person and friend not to buy gas. To get the gas situation, or say, "Look, we're not going to go to the grocery store for a week." I want everybody not to be able to go to the grocery store. I mean, I don't know how else you can empower, to be able to allow your voice to be heard. Because if they don't get the income, if they don't get the money, if you don't get up and go to work, and you have a mass amount of people doing it all at the same time, that they're going to end up stopping and
oh,
listening.
100%.
Go, Going and doing protests, going and
Well, and protesting the correct way, and
correct.
protesting at City Hall and not stopping people from getting to work.
That is correct. So the thing is even the protests, those are physical ways of people being able to see masses, and we've seen it throughout the
History.
world, yeah, and history, right? But now we have the power to where we don't even have, just like they just taught us, we don't even have to leave the comfort of our home, right? So the thing is,
Yeah.
if you have everybody end up being able to do that and staying in the comfort of their home all at the same time, and boycotting at the exact same
Well, look at Bud
time.
Light.
Oh God! I mean, we kicked their butt, man. It was like, holy smokes! And it was just a little bit, and they don't want us to know that we have that kind of power. And I appreciate you
No, I
so much.
appreciate you. Everything you do is awesome. And I can't wait to do it again.
Sounds great, man. I appreciate you.
All right, man.